No one would have believed in the last years of the 19th century that this world was being keenly and closely watched by intelligences greater than man's, and yet as mortal as his own. That as men busied themselves about their various concerns, they were scrutinized and studied, perhaps almost as narrowly as a man with a microscope might scrutinize the transient creatures that swarm and multiply in a drop of water. With infinite complacency, men went to and fro over this globe about their little affairs, serene in their assurance of their empire over matter. It is possible that the infusoria under the microscope do the same. No one gave a thought to the older worlds of space as sources of human danger, or thought of them only to dismiss the idea of life upon them as impossible or improbable. It is curious to recall some of the mental habits of those departed days. At most, terrestrial men fancied there might be other men upon Mars, perhaps inferior to themselves and ready to welcome a missionary enterprise. Yet across the gulf of space, minds that are to our minds as ours are to those of beasts that perish, intellects vast and cool and unsympathetic, regarded this earth with envious eyes, slowly and surely drew their plans against us. And early in the 20th century came the Great Disillusionment.
These words opened the famous War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells, written in 1898, a book which established the idea of invaders from outer space coming to attack the Earth. The novel was written by a European who feared invasion by other Europeans, which was a popular genre of books at that time. But Wells was also extremely interested in science, so he made his invaders from Mars rather than from another country. But is this depiction of a global war against alien invaders accurate? On today's thought experiment, we gaze fearfully, or not, towards the skies and ask the question, could we survive an alien invasion? First of all, we must establish our alien aggressors. For the purposes of this thought experiment, our alien menace will be coming from Proxima Centauri b, just a mere 4.2 light-years from Earth. It is important to establish the distance factor because, obviously, the further the aliens are from the Earth, the harder it will be for them to get here. An alien race from 100 light-years away would be coming to attack us with intel that is 100 years or more out of date, depending on how long it takes them to cover the distance. But before we get into it, we must first ask ourselves why these alien meanies are coming to invade us. Well, the plain fact is that they are coming because I said they're coming, because in actuality there really isn't any particular reason for them to make war on us.
Yes, they're coming. They really are.
Earth has a lot of great resources, to be sure, but it's not necessary to come to the Earth to get them. One major motive that is used frequently in alien stories about aliens attacking the Earth is to steal our water. But the problem is that water is one of the most plentiful molecules in the universe, and that there are much better sources for water right here in the solar system than the Earth. Europa, for example, is an entire moon covered in ice with no owners that we're aware of right now. It's a much better source of water than the Earth. What about metals like iron? Well, we have a lot of iron here on Earth, but we don't have easy access to it, since mostly it's contained in our core. A much easier source would be asteroids. How about gold? M-class asteroids like Amblin contain literally thousands of tons of gold. Maybe they are just coming to eat up our crops like locusts. Well, that's not super likely, actually. See, in order to properly digest something, you have to evolve to eat that thing. We humans can't digest grass, for example. We aren't evolved to eat that sort of thing, so we can't metabolize it at all. Aliens who evolved on a distant world from a completely separate evolutionary tree wouldn't be ideally suited to eating stuff from Earth. Maybe they're coming to get slaves for their evil alien empire. Well, presumably, if an alien race has the technology to cross light years of interstellar space, they probably have figured out automation by now and don't really need slaves. It seems like there's not really any reason for aliens to invade the Earth, and in any case, if there was something that was exclusive to the Earth that they wanted that they don't already have, they would be better served simply setting up trade routes, since their technology would necessarily eclipse ours, since they are capable of interstellar travel and we aren't. Okay, fine. There's not really any reason for them to conquer Earth, so we'll just run on Invader Zim logic and say that they will do it just because the Earth is in their way.
Why steer around the Earth when we can just blow it up?
Yeah! We're great at blowing stuff up!
Moving on. In order to stage a proper invasion of the Earth, these aliens would have to first do some serious reconnaissance. And since sending an armada of ships to a distant world billions of miles from home is no small undertaking, they would have to be very careful about it. Using their equivalent of telescopes, they could look at the star Sol and see it shake slightly because of radial velocity of planets pulling on it. They may even be able to register Jupiter as it transits across the sun's disk, so they know there are planets there. Based on the size and the color of our star, the aliens can compute the habitable zone and see if there are any planets that might fit in that area. Turns out there are. There are 3: Mars, Earth, and Venus. But it should be noted that a habitable planet is simply a rocky planet that falls spatially far enough away from the star that there could be liquid water on the surface. As we know from our own solar system, the Earth has liquid water, but Mars and Venus don't, even though they fall within the sun's habitable zone. The aliens would have to come to our solar system and observe the planet directly to see if they have water here or not, because you couldn't be able to tell that from a distance. A super advanced alien culture might be able to analyze spectroscopic readouts of our atmosphere and see that we have methane, carbon dioxide, nitrous oxide, and ozone in our atmosphere, strong indicators that there is life here. If they came to investigate, they would be able to observe the Earth from close quarters. They could measure its electromagnetic field and see that it probably harbors life, possibly even sentient life. We here on Earth wouldn't be able to know for sure if they were here. For example, we can track so-called near-Earth objects, even tiny ones, up to 30 million miles away. However, we can only manage it by observing NEO's trajectories over the course of many years, and we can only do it on NEOs that catch the sunlight. Objects coming from the direction of the sun itself can't be tracked because they appear as dark objects that can't be seen. It's fair to believe that a super intelligent alien race wanting to spy on us would know this and would come as a backlit dark object. Okay, so we have the keen intelligences far greater than man's observing us. They are gaining intelligence on the human race. How would these alien invaders attack to conquer the Earth? First of all, it should be noted that an alien wouldn't be fighting the United States or China or Great Britain. They would be fighting humanity as a whole. When you go out into your yard to obliterate ant mounds, you don't care that each mound is its own colony of ants, or that there might be different species of ants out there. You just eliminate them. This is how it would be for the alien invaders also. Still, the aliens would have an uphill battle on their hands. Even if their technology is far superior to ours, which it likely would be since they're capable of interstellar travel and we aren't, we have the numbers and resources advantage here. No matter how large the invasion force of aliens is brought to bear, they are limited by the number of invaders they can transport to the Earth, while we humans have no limits on reinforcements. If we lose equipment or troops, we could just make more, while our alien attackers would have to go back to their homeworld to get more equipment. Even at light speed, it would take 8.4 years to send a message to their homeworld and receive a reply, so the invaders are going to be completely on their own once the attack starts. They are also heavily handicapped by their supply lines. Here on Earth, we have the capacity to make and replenish food stores, But the aliens wouldn't have that advantage, and even if they could digest Earth food, they would have to claim and hold ground against a native force that knows the land better. Since a global war with an alien race would unify Earth against its common enemy, we humans can bring about 5.15 billion people between the ages of 15 and 65 to fight. Even if the aliens brought millions of invaders with crazy advanced technology, they would still be at a major disadvantage. That's not to say that technology wouldn't help them, though. We would be hopelessly outgunned even if we have the numbers. When Hernan Cortés first encountered the indigenous population of the Yucatan Peninsula, he won a crushing victory over the Maya with only 500 soldiers and 16 horses, because he had the advantage of steel weapons and armor, guns and mounted combat that the natives were not prepared to deal with. That said, even Cortés needed the aid of 1,000 Tlaxcaltec warriors, in addition to his own men to march on the Aztec capital. Relying exclusively on their own numbers, the aliens would be at a major disadvantage. The only possible tactic that might give them a chance at victory would be a blitzkrieg attack. Namely, the aliens would need to hit hard and fast and without any warning before we could mount a defense. Their first logical step would be to take out our communication satellites from space, which would hamstring our communications. Electromagnetic pulse blasts in the upper atmosphere would also severely cripple electronics, though most military technology is hardened against EMP. The aliens' best bet would be to make strategic strikes against military bases and the seats of government from orbit to break the chain of command. After that, speed and guerrilla tactics are their only chance. By moving quickly and striking without warning, the aliens can knock out a much larger fighting force. Sun Tzu, of the Art of War, knew this, and said, "Be where the enemy expects you not, and never be where they expect." If the aliens know their battle tactics, and if they're prepared to make a global war on an alien race, they probably do, they might also try for concentration of force tactics, spread out the Earth's forces, and strike hard on less defended areas, whittling away human resistance until they are broken. What the aliens do is, of course, completely dependent on what they want. If they want humans alive as subjects or slaves, they will use different tactics than if they want us all gone. If they're after the Earth itself and don't care about us, they can simply exterminate us all by adding biological or chemical agents to the warfare. That would wipe out humanity but leave the Earth more or less untouched. If that was their goal, there really wouldn't be much we could do about it. But if their intention was to conquer humanity and make them part of some galactic empire, the aliens would need to come up with a thoroughly well-thought-out battle plan to bring us to our knees and force surrender quickly. But what about us humans? What could we do in the event of an alien invasion to protect ourselves? Well, not much, realistically. A space-based enemy would cause major problems for us because it takes months or even years to get a vehicle ready for spaceflight, time which, in the face of a fast-moving tactical enemy, we simply wouldn't have. Our only real hope for a defense would be if we knew they were coming and could prepare, which presents its own difficulties. Our targeting systems would have a hard time locking on to enemy signatures that can move that fast, since their ships can cross the vast distances of space in a reasonable time. Heat-seeking missiles would be a good choice against ships descending through the atmosphere, but they may not be effective, and the aliens have the ability to shoot them down, or may have sufficient armor to simply eat the blast. Nuclear weapons may or may not be effective, but they would irradiate the Earth, with nuclear fallout, which is definitely not ideal. Chemical weapons have a similar problem, and contrary to what H.G. Wells was saying, biological warfare isn't really on the table. Aliens evolved on a completely separate planet on a completely different evolutionary basis. It is extremely unlikely, therefore, that they would be susceptible to Earth-based diseases. In order for a disease to infect a cell, that cell has to have the correct receptors to allow the disease in. That's why humans can't get diseases like fin rot. Dogfights in the sky between our aircraft and their ships would probably go badly for us because of the difference in speed, though it would be a bit better for us in terms of ground combat. It's a little disappointing to say, but Truthfully, the best tactic we could possibly use is either to give the aliens what they want, or simply scatter and hide and fight them as a resistance. Because the longer the alien invaders remain on Earth, the better our chances of destroying them. And what's more, the aliens are a ticking clock, because any of their ships or weapons that we manage to capture can definitely be reverse engineered and then used against them. Not only that, but any aliens that we do manage to kill will give us vital information about their biology with which to craft biological warfare against them. In the end, aliens simply would not be able to hold the Earth for long, given the fact that they would have no reinforcement from their homeworld. So even if the aliens did manage to conquer the Earth, they wouldn't be able to hold it for long. It's by no means certain that we would ever engage in a war with creatures beyond our understanding, but if ever the aliens do come a-knocking, we need to keep our eyes on the skies, keep our eyes and mind open, and always be creative. Thanks for watching.